One of the most important values of rugby, its ethos and its value of respect. It doesn't matter where you're from, what the colour of your skin is, your religious beliefs, your sexual orientation, there is a place for you within the rugby family.
This is not soccer, is that clear? Back you go and get on with the game.
And that's why rugby means a lot to me. There is no doubt that, I probably wouldn't have been able to be who I am today and being myself if it wasn't for the great sport that rugby is. When I was 24, 25 years of age, I was suffering from mental health issues, very depressed, in a very, very dark place, fighting against my sexuality, becoming somebody I didn't want to be, bulimic. I thought there's only one way out now, and that is to end my life. And that's when the moment my life changed, in accepting who I was. Until you accept there is something that you need to address in your life, then you're not going to get out of that. You're not going to be able to do something about it. I accepted now that who I was. Rugby has allowed me to be myself, and rugby has treated me just as anybody else. It hasn't treated me any differently. I owe more to my family and friends and the sport of rugby than they or rugby will ever owe to me.
This week on the show, we have Nigel Owens, who is an international rugby referee. He holds the world record for 71 test matches, and he's a really fascinating guy. He is on the field in front of 30 huge alpha males, and he tells them what to do. And being a referee and holding court at this very aggressive sport, when millions of people are watching you around the world, 80,000 people in a stadium, and you have a microphone on you, they can hear everything you say. Well, it's a very difficult job that he does really well. But he actually has a very dark past as well. He grew up in Wales, and he was closeted until the age of 26, almost committed suicide by overdose and a shotgun until he finally came to terms with the fact that he was gay. It took him another 8 years to come out, and when he did, he got nothing but love from the rugby community. It's an amazing story about inclusion, about being yourself, and about communication, which is what we need to do more with each other. So sit back, it's a very emotional episode. We talk about the future of Nigel having children, what really bothers him about today's society, and the future of rugby. I know you're going to enjoy it. And I also know you're going to enjoy everything over on the London Reel Academy, where you get to see full episodes, behind the scenes pictures and video, not to mention our success secrets. And also, we are restarting our Life Accelerator program and our brand new program, Broadcast Yourself, where we teach you how to create your own podcast or video show just like London Reel. So go check that out at londonreel.tv. And now I leave you with Mr. Nigel Owens. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Nigel Owens, the international rugby referee who holds the world record of 71 test match appearances. Your job is to command respect on the field from some of the world's leading male athletes, where you're known for your razor-sharp refereeing and cutting one-liners. In 2007, you were the first person to come out as gay in rugby, and your autobiography, Halftime, chronicles your struggles growing up in a small town in Wales where you attempted suicide, considered chemical castration, and battled with depression, bulimia, and steroid addiction. Last year, you were honored with the Member of the Order of the British Empire, the MBE, for your services. Nigel, welcome to London Real.
Thank you very much.
Nice having you here. You know, we have a worldwide audience here, and so before we jumped into what it's like to be on the field there, well, tell me about the game of rugby, and you know, what is it and what does it mean to you?
Well, the game of rugby was started back in rugby school in England here 150 plus years ago, whatever it was, when a guy called William Ellis just picked up playing football, or soccer, as we call it in some places in the world, as we call it in West Wales as well. They were playing a game of soccer and he just picked up the ball and started running with it. And obviously you're not supposed to pick up the ball in football, it comes handball. And this evolved into the game of rugby. And the game of rugby in general in a lot of countries was an upper class, middle class game, whereas the working class would tend to play football or soccer in a lot of the sort of countries. But then Wales was very different. Wales rugby was part of the community that were built around the coal mining industry and the steel mining industry, and all the rugby clubs evolved in those small communities then in Wales. And different to a lot of other parts of the country and a lot of other countries in the world, rugby in Wales was a grassroots, was a community, and was a working class game. So it was a very different type of game, exactly the same game, the same laws, but a different type of people, I suppose, in one sense, playing it in Wales. In Wales, it was a game for all classes, whereas traditionally when it started, it's changed now, and quite rightly so. Thankfully, it's a game for all classes now in all the countries, or most of the countries over the world. And so that's what rugby is in Wales, and rugby as a sport. And growing up as a young boy in Wales, brought up on a council estate in West Wales, in a small village of a population of about 125-30 people when I was brought up as a young person. Rugby was pretty much what you did in sport. You'd play rugby, you'd play football as well, kick the ball about, play soccer, but rugby then was sort of the game where every kid in Wales, or most kids in Wales growing up, would want to play for their country, and to be the heroes that they watched playing on a Saturday afternoon for their local clubs, for their local professional clubs now, and for the international stage. And it's so rugby is a wonderful sport. Rugby is a very unique sport where it is probably the only team sport in the world, nearly, where it is a game for all shapes and sizes. You can have somebody who's nearly 7 foot, the tallest person on the field, to the shortest person, to the biggest person, to the thinnest person, to the slowest, to the fastest. Rugby has a position in the field, in that 15 players, for everybody. No matter how fast you are, how good you are, whatever your shape, your different skills. You can be a forward where you can scrimmage and push people off the ball, or you can be a back that can run and beat people with your pace and your skill. So that makes rugby a very unique sport, and that's a hugely important part of rugby, that it is a game for everybody as well. If you look at sort of rugby league, then developed from rugby union, and if you look at soccer or football as a sport, there's only a certain type of player. If you're playing football, most of the people tend to be, skillful people, and sort of none of them are very big. You don't see the big guy, struggling to go around the field, maybe not playing football. But there's a place for them in rugby. So it's a very unique sport, and also as well, it's one of the sports that have led the way, I think, in recent years, in inclusiveness of the sport. No matter where you're from, what the colour of your skin is, your religious beliefs, your sexual orientation, there is a place for you within the rugby family, and that's why rugby means a lot to me. There is no doubt that I probably wouldn't have been able to be who I am today and being myself if it wasn't for the great sport that rugby is. So rugby means a lot to me, and it means a lot of people in Wales and to a lot of people all over the world as well. And that's why it's such a wonderful team sport.
I'll never forget my first introduction to both football, aka soccer, and rugby when I came to England about 15 years ago. And I think my first football match, I was down at Chelsea, and I went in there and I was in the stands, and there was like a 10-year-old kid and his father, and they were yelling things I'd never heard out of anyone's mouth in my life. They were really passionate, yelling, yelling, yelling. And that was my soccer experience. Then I went to Twickenham, and I remember before the match, people turned around in the stands and were like, good luck to you, before the match started. And I'm not saying one was better or worse, but they were very different cultures. Did I get the initial impressions right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
And you're right in what you're saying. I don't think one is better than the other. I don't think rugby can take the moral high ground above soccer or any other sport, and neither can soccer or football take the moral high ground above rugby or any other sport. They are different sports, and they are different cultures in a lot of them. But one of the true values of rugby, I think, which does set it apart from a lot of the other sports, is its value of respect. So if you went to watch an Arsenal-Chelsea game, for example, here in London, if you were the away supporter, you'd be sitting with the away support. You wouldn't be sitting next door to somebody who was supporting the home team. Whereas in rugby, you pretty much sit wherever you want in the stadium, and you could be sitting amongst the away support. You're supporting your own team, and you can feel safe within that environment. And rugby allows that, because one of the most important values of rugby, its ethos, and its important value is its value of respect. Whether it's respect to players, to match officials, and vice versa. Spectators, able to sit next to each other in the stadium, yet supporting different teams, but able to enjoy each other's company, enjoy the banter, but yet feel safe within that sporting environment. And that's a huge, important part of rugby, I think. And also what rugby does, I think rugby instills in you this value of respect. When you were a young kid growing up, you were taught the values of rugby, to respect the match officials, to be part of the ethos of the team. And it builds you not only the skill as a player, but it builds within you as well the skills of you to become a good person as well. And probably the most important value of that is the value of respect. I think if there's one thing that today's society lacks all over the world, is its value of respect. And rugby upholds a tradition of respect still. And as I said, it can't take the moral high ground, because there are a lot of things that rugby can improve on and do better as well. But when it comes to its value of respect, I think rugby certainly does lead the way in that. And that's what makes, as you quite rightly said, when you were in those two different sports, there were two different cultures, and there's a lot of good people in soccer, in football. There's a lot of good people in rugby. There are a few bad people in rugby, but the minority of those bad people are much less in rugby than they are in football. And that's whether it's the culture. It also as well, because football is a massive sport. There are much more people who follow football and watch football and play football than play rugby. So the minority in football is going to be a bigger minority, and that voice becomes bigger as well. But there's a lot of great people involved in football, as there is in rugby, and we must never lose sight of that, really. But rugby's value of respect is its most important ethos, I think. We must never lose that from the game.
I agree. I'm always talking about martial arts being important for children, because they learn that they can fight, but at the end of the day, always respect their opponents, etc. And so it's nice to hear you talk about a sport like rugby, to do the same, because I do think we need more of that stuff. Can you tell me what it's like to walk out on the pitch when there's 30 huge, strong lads out there that are about to try to knock each other's blocks off? There's a lot on the line. At Twickenham, there can be 80,000 plus people watching, millions on television, and you're mic'd up on top of that. And everyone's looking at you. What is that like for people that might not understand it?
Yeah, it's pressure. It's massive pressure. Some people don't like this. Whether they like it or not, the referee is an important part of the game. Not the most important part of the game, but an important part of the game, because without the referee, you're not going to get a game of rugby. So we are an important part of the game, but far from the most important part. We play a small part in it, but yet it's an important part in that cog of the game, because without it, the game wouldn't take place. And then over the years, they've developed, because rugby is quite a a difficult sport for somebody to understand what's going on if you haven't been brought up in rugby. You know, if somebody coming and looking, and I'm sure if you were looking at rugby for the first time, you must be thinking to yourself, what the hell is going on here? What are they trying to do? So what happened over the years, they bought the microphone for the referee to wear. So when the referee made decisions, he would be explaining the decisions. So people watching at home who, you know, had no idea about the laws of rugby and what went on in the game, could then help them understand and get them to understand rugby, and hopefully then get rugby a more global audience and get more people involved in the sport because they could now understand it. Because if you're not understanding something, you don't want to get involved in it. So that was, you know, we didn't ask as referees to wear those microphones. We were told, you know, you wear the microphone because we need to grow the game. And I think that's fine, and that's an important part of the game. But that brought its pressure. It's brought the pressure then of a lot of these games. Pretty much every game I referee now is live on television. And the pressure now, when the game went from amateur to professionalism back in 95/96, then were people getting paid. Then there was money for winning leagues, winning tournaments, bonuses, people's jobs. If you were a coach and you weren't winning, you'd get the sack. So then it adds a total new pressure to the role that you do within rugby. And then there's more pressure on us as referees then to make our decisions right. And then the more cameras you have now, sometimes 34, 38, 24, 28 cameras on the field, looking at every single decision from every different angle. Yet myself or any other referee gets one chance to look at it and make a decision like that. Although with a TMO now, you can look at decisions again within the protocol that allows. So it's brought a huge amount of pressure. So when you go out on that field, it's first of all a great privilege and honour to be a part of this wonderful game. A small part of it, but yet again a part of it. And it's a privilege and an honour, nothing more than that. And you go out there to do your job as a referee, and that's the most important thing. You're there to referee a game of rugby, nothing more, and certainly nothing less. But then with the microphones, with the cameras, with the games live on TV, with rugby growing globally as a sport, there has become more of a spotlight on a referee. We didn't ask for that spotlight, but it's become on us because your decisions are scrutinised. And sometimes I've had a bit of stick this week, in fact, of some people for the way that I communicate on the field. And they say, you know, that you're saying things to get headlines. I am not saying things to get any headlines. The game is about the most important people on the field, and that is the 30 players and the spectators who pay to come in and watch the game and the people watching at home. Those are the most important people in the game. The game is for them. We just play a small part in making sure that game goes ahead. So I don't go out on that field to make headlines or to say funny things because I think, oh, if I say this now, people will like this, they'll think it's funny. I don't do that. I go out in the field to do my best for the 30 players on that field. And I just say it as it is. And if something needs to be said on the field, I just say it. I don't think, oh, I'll say this now, this will be funny. I don't do that. I just say it as it is. And I treat the 30 players and the game itself with the utmost of respect. So sometimes as referees, we get criticised. You know, people say, well, a referee should be anonymous. You should know he's there. Well, yes, I agree. But when we wear the microphones, when the camera is on us and looking at every decision we make, we don't have any choice. So all we can do is be the best at what we can be and do our job. And if we do our job, then you are doing the justified service to the game and the credit to the game for what you should be doing. And that's all I do, is to go out in the field and do that. But with that, and I don't think people really appreciate sometimes the hard work that goes in behind the scenes, the training, the preparation for the matches, you know, the fitness training pretty much every day, and the preparation for the game, and making the decision in front of 85,000 people in the stadium, millions of people watching at home, and you've got to make that split decision like that under huge pressure. So the pressure on us as referees is massive now. And when you go out in that field, you sometimes feel that pressure. You carry the pressure for 80 minutes around the field. But, you know, that's why we're there. And if you're good at doing your job, you know, you are there doing the job. If you're not good at doing it, then you won't be doing it anymore. So, it is a wonderful experience, and it's a privilege and an honour to be part of the game. As I said, a small part of it, but a part of it. You know, I owe more to rugby than rugby will ever owe to me. You know, I'm just thankful to play the smallest of part in this wonderful game.
And you're known for your one-liners, for your comebacks and things. And you have a background in comedy as well, so that can't hurt.
Yeah, I think comedy is all about the timing, isn't it? That's what they say. Yeah. And there's a time and place for everything. And like, sometimes on that field, I say things, and I said something on the weekend to a player in a game in Munster Glasgow where I'd given a decision that the advantage was over, and the player asked me, quite rightly so, he was the captain, and asked, you know, why aren't we not going back with the scrum? Was advantage over? And I said, no, advantage is over. It was a poor pass by you under no undue pressure, which means because there was no pressure on you to make that pass, then we don't take that into account, so advantage is over. So if you chucked a pass which wasn't the best of passes, but you were under pressure to pass it because the defence was right on top of you, then advantage would not have been over. So you explained to the player, so I just told this player, look, because it was a poor pass by you, under no pressure, advantage is over. And he said, and he was quite witty himself. He came back and said, oh, cheers, thanks, coach, and had a smile, and we both went on with the game. And but I didn't say that because I think, oh, I want to be disrespectful to this player about the pass. I want people to think that this is funny. I don't even think that is witty. I just said exactly, look, this is the reason why advantage is over. And then, you know, and thankfully the majority of people in rugby have taken it in the right context of what it is meant, including that player himself. But I don't go out on that field to be funny or to do nothing else. I just go out to do my job, and that's the most important thing. And I suppose sometimes witty things come out because I just say it as is, and that's part of me, who I am as my personality, my upbringing, I guess. The humour that I was brought up within the family and the community in West Wales, you know, the farming community I was brought up in was a different type of humour. And I was on stage at 14 years of age doing stand-up comedy along, you know, 2 years before I even picked up the whistle to referee a game. So it's part of me, really. And it's natural, and it happens when I feel it or when I say it, I just say it. But never do I ever think I'm going to say this because I want to be funny. And there's a time and place, you know. If you penalise a player or you yellow card a player, then that's not the time to say something funny or to say a joke. So, you know, I just say it as it is, but I like to think that when I say it as it is on the field, I say it in the context that I mean it, and thankfully the majority of people, and we see pretty much nearly all the players, if not all of them, take it in that context, really. I refereed, and this, I suppose this will sum up a bit about the society we live in today, I guess. I refereed Leinster against Scarlets a couple of weeks ago, and we were about 10 minutes before the end of the game. There was been nothing controversial in the game. It was a great game of rugby, two positive teams playing good rugby. And I penalised Leinster about 10 minutes to go. And I had my back now to the touchline, which was about 15 metres away. And the ball boy chucked the ball on to the Scarlets player for him to take the penalty. And it caught me in the back of the head. So when somebody hits you at the back of the head or something hits you at the back of the head, the first thing you do is turn around and see where did it come from or what happened. So the ball catches me on the top of the head, the back of the head. So I just turned around, and the poor ball boy is on the touchline. He's gone bright red, and he goes, you know, sorry, he goes like this, you know. And I just sort of went over to him, got the yellow card out, and sort of gave him the yellow card with a stern look, because as if I was giving it to a player, and then gave him a big smile, and he trundled off, and then the ball went to the touch, and I went down, I shook his hand, I said, you okay? He said, yes. He said, sorry about that. I said, don't worry about it, I said. And shook his hand and got on with it, and I signed the match jersey for him, and I got hold of who he was, and I posted it out to him, and he's actually had the jersey last week. But then what surprised me was then, you know, I didn't plan that. I didn't think, oh, if a ball boy chucks a ball at me one day, I'm going to give him a yellow card. I just reacted the way that I would react in any situation in everyday life. And I reacted because it was the right thing to do at the time. There'd been nothing controversial in the game. If there'd been something controversial in the game, or there'd been a yellow card which was debatable, I probably wouldn't have reacted that way and given the yellow card, because you'd have people quite rightly saying, well, look, he's just yellow carded somebody for a dubious yellow card decision 10 minutes ago, and now he's making a joke out of it and yellow carding the ball boy. And they would be right. So there's a time and place for everything. Yeah. So I support part of your upbringing and some of my comedy background, if you guess, is knowing, I suppose, how to react and when to react. But what surprised me with that was, and as I said, I think this sums up society where we live in today. How many people commented and say, what a wonderful thing, what a great guy you are, what a lovely thing to do, you made that bald boy's day. And I thought, really? Is it such a wonderful thing? Isn't this something we all should be doing, is not taking life too seriously sometimes and have the ability to have a smile and a joke when the time is right, you know? And I do sometimes think that we are living in a time where political correctness has gone to the extreme, health and safety has gone to the extreme. People are afraid to have a joke and have a smile anymore. And, you know, if that's the way society is going to go, we're going to be living in a very, very sad place in years to come. I certainly hope it won't be in my lifetime, because I wouldn't like to live in a society where we're afraid to have a joke and a smile anymore when the time is right.
You said something there. It's your job really to know the emotional makeup of that field, to judge it, and then make decisions accordingly. Because I'm about to ask you, how do you get on there and command the respect of the 30 guys on that field? A lot of these guys, tempers, you know, a lot on the line, which brings up a lot of things. And yet you have to be measured and know when to push, when to joke, when to do this, when to do that. How do you do that?
I think a lot of it is your natural ability to do that, your man management style, really, and your experiences in learning over, you know, I've been refereeing now 29 years. If touch wood, I'm still fit and healthy, and I start refereeing in September when the rugby season starts back up here. It'll finish at the end of May up here before the tour, but starts back in September. And hopefully, if all is well, I'll be refereeing in September. I'll be starting my 30th year. Now, in that 30 years, I have done a lot of mistakes in refereeing. I've done a lot of decisions that were, you know, poor decisions at the time, from the very, very beginning of your career until quite recently, where you make mistakes, because there is no way you can referee a game of rugby without making a mistake. Yourself, me, and anybody else who's watching or listening to this today is not going to get through life without making mistakes. And refereeing is no different. And I've made mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes. So it's a huge amount of experience, really, in making mistakes and learning how to say things, when to say them, the temperature of the game, when it needs to sort of let the game go so they can play, or something, rein it back in a bit, you know, or keep a firm hand because temperatures are starting to rise and you need to keep your calm and stuff around that, because once you start rising with the temperature of the game is going to get even more, and your job is to bring the temperature back down, and a lot of that is learned by experience, the type of person you are. Not everybody can do it, not everybody can be a referee, and as well, I think, as I said earlier, the most important value of rugby is respect. You know, I have the utmost respect for every single player that I have ever refereed. And I'd like to think that respect, you know, works both ways, and that they would respect me as a person, but more importantly, as a player, as a referee doing my job. And that respect is earned over the years, really, by you doing what you need to do. And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm there to referee a game of rugby, and knowing when to do things, when to penalise, when not to blow the whistle. The easy job in officiating is blowing the whistle. That's the easy job. Knowing when not to blow it is the difficult one. And I suppose over years with experience and skill and learning from your mistakes, that's when you get the ability to judge that, really. And because I suppose of the type of person I am, my humour, my background, I suppose that's when I know naturally, I guess, when to say something in the game that is humorous. Even though I may not think it's humorous when I say it, obviously people who do watch the game think it is humorous, and then all of a sudden it's in social media and over the press, where it wasn't my intention to be like that. I just said it as it was, and I suppose that is a skill that you learn with over the years, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you need to be extremely real and authentic in every single second of the game, and the players need to feel that, and then you have to make those calls that the 30 years of experience gives you that right to call. You're
right. I think the biggest compliment, or one of the biggest compliments I've ever had, but a couple of compliments. I've had a lot of sort of, you know, Wales-England for us is the biggest rivalry in rugby.
Why is that a big rivalry? If there's an American watching right now, how would you explain the basis of this rivalry?
I suppose it'd be a bit like, I was out in Canada a few years ago refereeing, and I watched the Stanley Cup. Edmonton were playing against, I can't remember the name of the American. hockey side. There's huge rivalry between America and Canada in the Stanley Cup, isn't there?
In hockey,
in hockey, so it's the same in rugby in Wales, that rivalry between the country. You know, you're playing for your country against another country. England is the massive country with 60 million plus people. Wales is a small country of 3 million, you know, and yet we're able to beat England, you know, as often as they've beaten us over the years. And that's a huge, it's a rivalry that is a friendly rivalry, a sporting rivalry. The sporting arena has this unique way of allowing that rivalry to happen, but without crossing the mark into hatred. And rugby does that very well. It allows that rivalry to happen, where you really want to beat the English as a Welshman, and the English want to beat the Welsh, you know, and the Scottish want to beat the English, and, you know, the French when they're playing the Italians, the Americans when they're playing the Canadians, Australia when they play New Zealand. But rugby allows that rivalry to be part of the sporting arena of the sport, and doesn't allow it to spill over into hatred or anything. And that's a unique and very, very unique thing. So as a Welshman, it's a massive rivalry, you know. And one of the biggest compliments I ever had, and I've had a few of them really, is when a lot of English supporters have said, you know, I would trust Nigel Owens to referee an England-Wales game. And that's a huge statement, you know, to make, I think. And then the other biggest compliment I had was of Ryan Jones, the ex-Welsh captain, ex-British Lion and ex-Ospreys captain. And I remember Ryan telling me after one game, and I thought, that is one hell of a compliment. And he said, when we see you refereeing a game, or when we know you're down to referee a game, myself and the players know we don't have to worry about the referee today. We don't have to worry about any decisions, whether they're for us, against us. We can trust you and your ability and your honesty on the field to make the right decisions. And yes, you'll make mistakes, as we will as players. But when you're down on that team sheet to referee a game, I and the team know, and we don't have to worry about the referee today. We can just get on and concentrate on our job. And I thought, that is probably one of the nicest compliments that somebody has said to me, really, in the sporting context of my job as a referee, I guess.
Which means they can get on and actually play the game.
And they can get on, yeah, because sometimes teams will worry about, oh, we got this referee today, you know, how is he going to referee the game and stuff like this. And, you know, when somebody says, you know, we don't have to worry about the referee today, we'll know he'll do his best and he'll do a job. And that is the best compliment you can get as a referee, I think.
Talk to me about the electronic replay. I think it's called TMO. It's happening in some sports. And 30 years from now, will you be a robot, or will there be no referees on the field? Will it all be done digitally?
I certainly hope there won't be a time when it'll be robots on the field. I certainly hope, because rugby in particular needs that element of humanity on the field. In, as I said earlier to you, in knowing when to blow the whistle and when not to blow the whistle. You know, when you type something into a robot, you will do well, this has happened now, so I need to do this. Refereeing is not like that, especially in rugby. Refereeing needs a degree of empathy, understanding what's going on, realize why something happened and why you give this decision, knowing when not to give a decision. You know, yeah, I saw the player offside over there, but it had no effect on play whatsoever, so I don't need to penalise him. I'll have a word with him. Make sure you're behind the hindmost foot next time, or behind the offside line. But as the game has progressed, the game has gone faster, the ball in play time is more now. The pressure on us as referees to get those big decisions right is more. And it is humanly impossible sometimes for you to make a decision on the field and get it right, because from where you're standing and looking at it, it's impossible for you to see exactly what happened. And that's where technology then, the TMO, has come in, where you have an ex-referee sitting in the television van outside the stadium or in the stadium, wherever you may be, looking at all these different angles. And then within the protocol, there's a protocol. You just can't go to the TMO whenever you want to. There's a strict protocol in place when you can use a TMO. And then you can go to the TMO then and tell him, look, can you show me that again for me to see if I can award this try, or if there was a foul play that I need to deal with. And we need technology in the game. We don't want to overuse it, because if we overuse it and we become reliant on it, then we lose the ability of the referee to make the decisions. And we can't lose that from the game, because you want the majority of those decisions made on the field. But it is important that technology is part of the game, but it has to be used in the right way and in the right context, and not overused. And I think technology is here to stay, I think, and quite rightly so. But we need to be sure that it's not overused, that it's only used as a last resort when we absolutely necessarily need it to make a big decision, an important decision.
You see a lot on the field. You see personalities, you see the way people interact, you see coaches. And we actually had James Haskell in here about a year ago and talked to him. And I think England was in the middle of the Six Nations, or Seven Nations going on. And I know they quickly left it. And England changed managers and has been on a great streak after that. And you must see this up close and see how personalities are managed. And I just wondered if you had thoughts on how a manager can change the course of a team outlook, and just if you had any thoughts on England.
James Haskell is a wonderful character, a great player and a wonderful character of the game, and games need characters like that. And
have you had run-ins with him?
Yeah, but not a run-in in any disagreement or argument. A friendly run-in, a little quiet word here with a smile and an acknowledgement by him by a smile, or sometimes even him telling me, "Oh, it's a bit harsh, Nigel." And I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe it was. So that sort of respectfulness, really, in a run-in, not in, I think, disrespectful, and that's the same for the majority of the players, to be honest, if not all of them, and that's important, because that respect, it's the main, whenever you talk about rugby, it all comes back to that main spine of the game, which comes down to respect. Hugely, hugely important. And as the management skill goes, every person will react to a different type of manager in one sense. You have sometimes the manager who is, quite upfront and in your face, and players respond. And if that works for that team, then that manager is the right guy for that team. If you have another manager who's maybe a bit more laid back and deals with things differently, with a little quiet word here, quiet word there. Same with referees. You have some referees who are really sort of into the player. Now, you do that again and you're off, And then you have another referee who will, by the player, say, "Hey, I saw what you do there. Don't do it again, or you'll be going." Different type of approach, a different type of communication skill. Now, both of them may get the message across, and different styles of doing it. And I think then, that's when a team has the right manager, whoever manager may be, whether it's Wales, England, Ireland, Scotland, New Zealand, South Africa, France, Italy, any country in the world. They have a manager in or a coach in, and his style is what that team responds to, or his management team, that team responds to that, and they get the results, then that's what works for them. So, everybody's different really in their style and in their approach, but, and then it's down to you then to use your team, the best way that you can.
And are you optimistic on the outlook of England rugby? Or can you comment as a referee?
Well, not I couldn't really comment on England rugby because, I'm a Welshman. So, my outlook on Welsh rugby, yes, we would be very positive, We've got a very successful Welsh team over the last sort of 10, 15 years since we won the Grand Slam back in 2005 for the first time since 1978, I think it was. And since then, they won 3 Grand Slams, another 2 championships, Triple Crowns, and went to the semi-final of the World Cup in 2011. It's been a hugely successful period for Welsh rugby. This year's Six Nations was not as successful as we would have liked it to be. Wales were unlucky. They lost a couple of games which they could have won. And then all of a sudden, the outcome of the Six Nations is very different from a Welsh perspective. So, I'm hugely positive about the future of Welsh rugby. The Welsh Rugby Union, I think, is doing a lot of good things. You have good people, the right people within the Welsh Rugby Union running the game. You have good people in the regions in Wales running the game as well. And there's a lot of very good people in Welsh rugby that are putting Welsh rugby first. And, I'm very optimistic, really, for the future of Welsh rugby. And, the systems that they have in place. There's always place to improve, and it will improve, with experience and with different ideas and things evolving all the time, and everybody bringing something different to the table when people get together. But I think Welsh rugby is in is in a very good place. I think there's a lot to be done. There's a lot we need to do at the community end and the grass ends to get, you know, more people playing the game, you know, at the grassroots and community game as well, to keep that going, because that to me is the most important part of the game, is your community and your grassroots of the game. That's where we all start. That's where we all come from. Wherever you reach in rugby, if you're a British Lion, a Welsh international, you're leading point scorer for your club or region, you know, an international referee or a local referee, we all come from the same place and start the same way, and it's hugely important. So there, you know, there's a lot of things to keep working at and to get better at. But I'm very optimistic, for the future of Welsh rugby. Yes.
Tell me more about Wales. We've had a few famous Welshmen on the show. We had Matthew Pritchard from Dirty Sanchez, fascinating guy. I know you've had
great character.
He's a great character. I know you did some things with him. Also, Howard Marks, may he rest in peace. You know, we had him on here about 3 years ago. I had an amazing conversation with him. One of the first books I read when I got to England was Mr. Nice, and it's an amazing read. You know, the world knows Tom Jones, and there's a few others, but 3 million people, it's a small country that obviously punches above its weight. What was it like for Nigel to grow up in Wales? What did you see? What would I see if you took me there? What kind of place is it?
Rolling hills, a lot of singing, coal mines, sheep, rugby, a religion, chapels, everything. Small communities built on the side of steep hills. And then in other parts of the country, you know, the agricultural sort of West Wales area of the Towy Valley, where there's rich pasture and a lot of farming community. And then in other parts of Wales, is in North Wales and Mid Wales, beautiful part of the country where you'll have the slate mines. South Wales, then you'd have the industrial, you know, when I was growing up, you still had a lot of steelworks, a lot of coal mines, you know, and then it started closing sort of mid-80s onwards then, and I don't think there's a coal mine left in Wales now, or if there is, there could be 1 or 2 small private ones, you know. And, but growing up in Wales, it was, you know, a land of song and rolling hills and rugby players as heroes, and people like Tom Jones, you know, who was a world, you know, national treasure of Wales, world renowned, and people like that. So Wales growing up was sort of many wonderful things, and probably one thing that would set Wales apart from a lot of the other countries is its language. You know, we still have our Welsh language. I speak Welsh first language. I couldn't speak English until I was 6 years of age, till I learnt it in school. And we're about 20% of the population still speak Welsh, and you know, we need to at least keep it at that, but hopefully more importantly keep growing at that, and hopefully it will grow, because the education system in Wales now has a lot of Welsh medium schools, so that is obviously helping. A lot of industry in Wales require people to be able to speak both languages and everything like that. So
why is that important?
It's hugely important, because I think, you know, if you lose your language, then you lose, I think, the heart of your country, I think. That is what really makes your country beat, and what really sets your country apart, I think, is your own language. And when you lose that language, it's gone forever, and, you know, you've lost the heart of your country then, I think. Now, it doesn't make me any more Welsh than a Welsh person in Wales who doesn't speak Welsh. But I am very proud that I speak Welsh, and I think hugely important that we keep the language alive, I think. And it is difficult to explain to somebody if they can't understand Welsh or can't read Welsh. When you listen to some of the Welsh hymns, the Welsh poems and verses, you know, the tales and tradition written in Welsh, it's just a wonderful and beautiful language. And it's hard to, when you can understand or speak Welsh and you read this language and you listen to the songs and listen to the words, it's absolutely unbelievable. There is nothing like it in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
Culture is embedded in language,
It's a culture embedded in you, and it's hugely important, I think. And it's a part of your identification, you know. And when you travel around the world, people always ask you, oh, you've got your own language in Wales, haven't you? You know, tell me something in Welsh. And then I tell them the name of the longest place in the world, which is in North Wales, which is Llanfair Pwll Gwyngyll Gogerich when Drobwyll Llandasilio Go Go Goch. And people are amazed, you know, and some people go, wow, you know, is that your language? And they go, oh, that sounds beautiful. They don't understand a word of it, but it sounds beautiful. And I really, really can't say how important the language is to me, really. It's hugely important. And as I said earlier, when you sort of, you sit back sometimes and you listen to some music and some Welsh words, you know, some of the hymns and traditional songs and some of the traditional poems and verses written by, you know, the poets and stuff in Wales over the years. And it's absolutely an unbelievable experience, and the words are so beautiful and mean so much.
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, and I'll see you on the inside.
If you are in a situation now and you are good at what you do, but there's still a little bit of something worrying, whatever it may be, and you're not being true to yourself, imagine how much better not only life is going to be, but how much better you are going to be as an individual at what you're doing as well by being true to yourself. And I think that is very, very, very true.